Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel X Coin Secrets. Today, we're counting down the top 5 Jefferson nickel 5-cent coins that collectors are hunting for. From rare mint marks to unique varieties, these nickels are worth thousands. Stay tuned to see which coins made the list and discover hidden treasures you might have in your pocket change. Our first coin, the 1964 Jefferson nickel 5-cent coin. A piece many people still overlook in their pocket change. At first glance, it looks like an ordinary nickel, but certain examples have shocked the coin world with auction prices reaching around $3,000. Even in circulated fine condition, that's what makes this coin so exciting. The year 1964 is special for Jefferson nickels because it was the final year before major design and mint mark changes. Millions were struck, but within that massive production, collectors have identified rare variations that stand out. One of the most talked about is the 1964 large date Jefferson nickel with a small D mint mark on the reverse. Just to the right of Monticello, the date numerals appear slightly bolder and wider than normal, and the D mint mark is noticeably smaller and more compact compared to common Denver issues. In circulated fine condition, this coin still shows clear details. Jefferson's hair and profile are visible, though worn, and Monticello on the back remains outlined with readable lettering. The wear tells a story, but it doesn't kill the value. In fact, many collectors prefer honest circulation because it confirms the coin wasn't altered later. What really matters is the correct date style, the genuine small D mint mark on the back, and original surfaces. So, why would a 5-cent coin be worth as much as $3,000 today? It comes down to rarity, demand, and collector competition. High-end Jefferson nickel specialists actively search for unusual 1964 varieties, especially those with clear diagnostics and natural, where when a confirmed example appears in an auction, bidding can get intense. Recent auction results and private sales have shown that a properly attributed 1964 large date with small D reverse can reach around $3,000, even without mint state shine. Another reason for the high value is how easily this coin can be missed. Most people never check the size of the date or the shape of the mint mark. Many examples may still be sitting in old jars, rolls, or inherited collections. That's why collectors always say to look twice at 1,964 nickels before spending them. If you think you might have one, use a magnifying glass and compare it with a normal 1964 Denver nickel. Look closely at the date thickness and the size of the D on the reverse. Avoid cleaning the coin, because cleaning can destroy value instantly even in fine condition. Original surfaces are critical. Next coin, the 1977 Jefferson nickel 5-cent coin. At first glance, it looks like a common coin you might find in your pocket or in a jar of spare change, but certain examples have shocked collectors and brought impressive prices at auction. Believe it or not, a genuine 1977 Jefferson nickel large date variety with no mint mark in circulated fine condition has sold in the auction market for around $2,600. That's right, a 5-cent coin bringing thousands of dollars because of its rarity and collector demand. So what makes this 1977 Jefferson nickel so special? To understand that, we need to go back to how coins were made in the 1970s. In 1977, the U.S. Mint produced large quantities of Jefferson nickels, but within that mass production there were subtle differences in the way the date was struck. Some coins have what collectors call a large date, slightly taller, wider, and more open numerals, while the majority are small date with thinner, more compact numbers. Because mint marks were temporarily removed from coins intended for circulation during that period, these 1977 nickels do not carry any mint mark on the obverse. That means distinguishing the rare large date variety requires a trained eye and careful comparison. Now, let's talk about condition. The example we're focusing on today sold in a circulated fine grade in coin grading terms. That means the coin has experienced noticeable wear from everyday use, but the design elements are still identifiable. On the obverse, you can still make out Jefferson's profile and the general shape of his hair, though the finer details are worn smooth from circulation. On the reverse, Monticello, Thomas Jefferson's home, still shows its outline, and all the letters in the date and inscriptions remain readable despite the wear. What really matters for collectors is that the large date characteristics are still present and identifiable. So why would a coin in this condition be worth around $2,600 today? The answer comes down to rarity and demand. Most 1977 nickels that were released into circulation are the common small date type. The large date variety exists in much smaller numbers, and most of those that were produced long ago entered circulation and were lost, spent, or melted for change. As a result, collectors who specialize in Jefferson nickel varieties value the large date highly, especially examples that are authentic and show natural wear without cleaning or damage. When a properly attributed 1977 large date nickel with no mint mark appears in an auction or marketplace, serious collectors often compete for it. Auction records and recent sales show that these coins can sell for about $2,600 in circulated fine condition. A remarkable price considering its face value is just 5 cents. That also tells you something important about the coin collecting hobby. It's not just old silver dollars or rare gold coins that fetch big dollars. Even modern coins with subtle variations can become treasures if they are rare and sought after. Another reason for the high value is the thrill of the search. Many collectors spend years examining Jefferson nickels, from pocket change, coin rolls, old collections, and estate finds, hoping to spot the large date variety, because the difference between large and small date is subtle. Even experienced collectors sometimes miss it until they compare a suspect coin under magnification with reference images. That scarcity of confirmed examples adds to competition and drives auction prices higher. If you're curious whether you might own one of these rare nickels, start by pulling out any 1,977 nickels you have and examining the date under magnification. Look for broader, more open numerals compared to other 1977 nickels you might find. Remember that original surfaces and untouched wear add to value, so avoid cleaning the coin or trying to alter its appearance, as that can drastically reduce what serious collectors are willing to pay. Next coin, the 1960 large date Jefferson nickel with the small D mint mark on the reverse. Even in a circulated dusty fine condition, this coin has been selling in today's auction market for around $3,400, and that's what makes it so fascinating. On the surface, the 1960 Jefferson nickel is a coin you might have spent, saved, or forgotten in a jar of change. Millions were struck and released into circulation, but within that huge mintage there are subtle differences, tiny clues that can turn an everyday nickel into a rare collectible. The particular variety we're talking about today has two key features that set it apart. First, the date on the obverse is the large date style. The numerals are slightly taller, wider, and more open than on the common small date version. Second, on the reverse, this coin carries a small D mint mark placed to the right of Monticello. That small D tells us it was minted at the Denver Mint, and the fact that it's smaller than usual is one of the diagnostics collectors look for. In circulated fine condition, the coin has clearly seen use. It's worn from years of handling. The high points of Jefferson's portrait on the obverse are softened, and the details of Monticello on the reverse are worn down. There might even be a light layer of dust or grime in the recesses, which is very typical for coins that have spent decades in circulation or tucked away in collections and drawers. But even with this wear, the large date and small D mint mark can still be identified by collectors who know where to look. And that's the key. The coin must retain enough original detail so that the rare features are clearly visible. So why would a 1960 nickel, a coin worth just 5 cents at face value, bring around $3,400 at auction? There are a few reasons. One is rarity. While millions of 1960 nickels were made, relatively few examples of the large date with small d have survived in collectible condition. Many were lost, spent, or melted down over the decades. Those that remain are scattered and not always recognized for what they are. Coins like this don't come up for auction very often, and when one does, collectors pay attention. Another reason is collector demand. There's a dedicated group of Jefferson nickel specialists and variety collectors who actively seek out coins with noticeable and verified die differences. When a verified 1960 large date small D nickel is offered, even with wear and dust, these collectors often compete to add it to their sets, driving prices up. Auction records and private sales over recent years have shown strong prices for this variety, especially when the diagnostic features are solid and the coin hasn't been harshly cleaned or damaged. It's also important to understand that condition matters differently in the world of numismatics. A coin doesn't have to be uncirculated or pristine to be valuable in this case. The fine circulated grade still shows enough of the essential design elements to confirm both the large date and the small d. That makes it collectible and desirable. Many collectors prefer coins with natural wear because it shows the true history of the piece, a coin that was used in everyday life, not stored away in perfect condition. If you have a jar of old nickels at home, it's always worth checking them carefully. A 1960 nickel might look like just another coin, but if it has the large date and the small Denver Mint mark, you could be holding something special to confirm. Compare your coin with reference images of both the large and small date patterns and consult trusted resources or a professional grader if you're unsure. And remember, never clean the coin. Cleaning can permanently damage the surface and significantly reduce its value. Next coin, the 1984 Jefferson nickel with a large date and an unusually small D mint mark on the front has become a sought-after rarity that, in today's auction market, can bring around $4,400 even in circulated fine condition. Before we get into the details, it's important to understand that most 1984 Jefferson nickels, even with a Denver D mint mark, are very common and sell for only a few cents to a few dollars, depending on condition and demand. What makes this particular variety special is not just the date or the mint mark, but the very specific combination of features that a small group of collectors have identified as different from the standard issues. When that combination is authentic and the diagnostic details are clear, it can turn a common coin into a rare collector's piece. Let's break down what we mean by a large date and a small D mint mark on a normal 1984 Jefferson nickel from Denver. The date numerals have a certain size and spacing, and the D mint mark on the obverse sits at a standard size next to the date. But on the variety we're talking about today, the date numerals are slightly larger and more open, a characteristic that changes the overall look of the obverse. Even more unusual is that the D mint mark appears smaller than typical, almost as if it was struck with a different tool or from a die that had slightly different engraving. These differences are subtle and easily missed without careful comparison and magnification. Now let's talk about condition. The example that sold for around $4,400 was graded in circulated fine condition. What does that mean? In coin grading terms, fine describes a coin that shows moderate wear from years of handling, spending, and circulation. On the obverse, Jefferson's portrait is worn down at the highest points, with his hair and facial details softened. On the reverse, Monticello, Jefferson's home, shows rounded edges and diminished architectural details. Although the outlines are still clear despite the wear, the key diagnostic features, the unique large date and the unusually small D mint mark, remain visible enough to confirm the variety. That's what makes this coin collectible, the rarity of its diagnostic characteristics, not the absolute sharpness of its details. So, why would a nickel like this bring around $4,400 at auction? It all comes down to rarity, demand, and collector competition. Coins with unusual or unclassified die traits can attract significant interest when they are genuine and verifiable in the world of Jefferson nickel enthusiasts. Any variation that can be reliably distinguished from the standard issue becomes a target for registry sets and specialized collections when a coin that meets all the criteria for this 1984 variety appears in an auction. Serious bidders step forward, and bids can climb quickly. Another factor is that coins like this don't appear often in the market. Even though millions of 1984 nickels were minted, very few have been positively identified with this specific combination of features. That scarcity, combined with strong demand from variety collectors, helps drive the price upward, even for coins with obvious circulation where, in fact, many collectors prefer coins that show honest, natural wear, because unaltered surfaces better reflect the coin's history and make it easier to verify authenticity. If you're someone who checks your pocket change or old coin collections, this story is a great reason to look more closely at any 1,984 nickels you come across. Use a magnifying glass and compare the date numerals and mint mark size to standard reference images. Pay attention to the spacing and shape of the numbers and the letter. Don't be discouraged if your coins are worn. Many valuable finds are discovered in circulated condition. But also remember that cleaning a coin or altering its surface can destroy value. So always handle coins gently and avoid polishing them. Next coin, the 2000 Jefferson nickel, a 5-cent coin that most people think of as ordinary, but there's a specific variety, a large date with a uniquely small D mint mark on the front, that has become extremely desirable in the collector community, even in circulated fine condition. This coin has been known to sell for around $2,000 in today's auction market. Now, on the surface, a 2000 Jefferson nickel looks like any other nickel you've seen. It was produced in large numbers and is a coin most of us have spent, saved, or forgotten in jars of spare change. But among all those common coins, there exists a rare variation that specialists are actively searching for. The clues are subtle, and they lie in the way the date and mint mark were struck. When we talk about a large date variant, we mean that the numerals in the date appear slightly taller, more open, and broader compared to the regular 2000 nickel. It's a nuance you might only notice when comparing several coins side by side or under magnification. Add to that a small D mint mark up front next to the date, noticeably smaller than what you'd normally expect, and you have a combination that makes this version stand out from the rest. In circulated fine condition, the coin has clearly been used in everyday transactions. Jefferson's portrait on the obverse is softened, with the finer details of his hair and facial features worn from handling on the reverse. The image of Monticello shows wear, but the overall shape and lettering remain identifiable. Even though the coin isn't crisp and shiny like an uncirculated piece, it still retains the key characteristics that allow collectors to confirm the rare variety. In fact, many numismatists prefer coins that show honest wear because they are easier to authenticate than coins that have been cleaned or artificially enhanced. So, why would a coin that most people regard as common bring around $2,000 at auction? The answer comes down to rarity, demand, and competition among collectors. Even though millions of 2000 nickels were struck, only a small fraction carry the specific combination of the large date and the unusual small d mint mark. These coins slipped into circulation decades ago, and most have been spent and forgotten. The few that remain aren't easy to find. And when one shows up that can be positively identified, collectors take notice. Auction results and market activity show that when a certified example with clear diagnostics is offered, bidding can get intense. Serious Jefferson nickel specialists, collectors who focus on die varieties, mint mark anomalies, and subtle production differences, are willing to pay a premium to add a confirmed example to their collection, that competitive interest is a big part of why a coin like this can reach a value around $2,000, even though its circulating wear and tear has softened the details. Part of the excitement in coin collecting comes from the detective work involved if you're examining your own change or a box of old coins. A 2000 nickel might look ordinary at first glance, but with a magnifying glass and a reference image or two, you could spot those larger date numerals and the smaller D mint mark, and suddenly you're holding something that's valuable to the right buyer. Just remember, never clean a coin to try to enhance its appearance. Harsh cleaning can damage the surface and destroy value instantly, and collectors can usually tell when a coin has been improperly cleaned.